Cypress Development Corp. is developing a world-class lithium resource in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. The size of the resource makes the Clayton Valley project a premier asset with the potential to impact the future of lithium supply. Cypress Development Corp. trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the OTCQB, symbol CYDVF, and on Frankfurt, symbol C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Kris Sims, BC Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, her website taxpayer.com. Welcome back to the show, Kris.
Thank you so much.
Kris, Canadian Finance Minister Bill Morneau just made a statement saying before the COVID crisis, Canada was in great financial shape. Was it, and will we be in great financial shape once this whole thing settles out?
No, it absolutely was not. That was one of them. I just read that myself, and that was one of the more jaw-dropping things that I've ever read coming from the finance minister. We were on track to have a deficit of about $100 billion. Or in other words, they were on track, the Trudeau government was, on track to add about $100 billion to our national debt. So, needlessly, this is before COVID. This is back when, we should have been booming. The United States economy was on fire, doing very well. We have tons of natural resources that we should have been getting out to market. We should have been saving up for a rainy day. But no, we were on track to have that terrible deficit. Then COVID hit. So to have a finance minister say something so completely incorrect was really stunning. And now, here we are getting a credit downgrade. We've got a credit downgrade. So now that means that the debt that they're incurring on our behalf is going to cost us more. Just like if, an individual has a poor credit rating, it's going to cost you more in interest. Well, guess what? The national debt is no different. This means this is just going to compound it even further. So he's going to take a serious step back and look in the mirror. That was a really irresponsible statement because it wasn't true.
Now, I think up until about 1972, the Canadian government was self-financing. It borrowed from itself. Should Canada return to that instead of borrowing money commercially?
Oh, it's a great question. That's something that perhaps an economist would better be able to answer. But speaking generally, the world has moved on from that time so much that it's extremely complicated. Countries borrow from other countries. They borrow from lenders. It's a very complicated system, which is why our credit rating really, really matters. And it's also why we can't just continuously go on borrowing or imagining that somehow we will come up with the money. We can't will it into existence. Wealth is finite and borrowing is real. And they need to make sure that we don't overextend ourselves, which now, this big tap on the shoulder, this credit downgrading, shows that Canada is overextending itself, which is, again, why it's so infuriating. It's one of those things where this is why people were warning them, that when times are good and the economy should be doing very well, you should be saving money. You should be paying down the debt. You should be lowering taxes. You should be helping people to make sure that they're able to do business and make money on their own, not borrowing willy-nilly and blowing money on stupid things like needlessly dragging your feet on the Trans Mountain Pipeline and then paying billions of dollars for it. That's just one example of terrible financial mismanagement. And so they really shouldn't have done that, and they should be learning their lesson from it. We understand that it's tough to say I told you so when we're in the middle of a huge crisis, especially globally with finances. But to have the finance minister come out and say we're in a good financial position before it to unleash our firepower financially before COVID, that means they haven't learned anything. So this is why we're really going to take them to task for this. They need to smarten up.
Canada failed in its bid for a UN Security Council seat, a position that essentially means nothing because the big powers have vetoes, so no matter what you vote for, they can override it. Did we waste a lot of time and money on this?
We wasted years, and as far as we understand, millions of dollars on trying to get this UN Security Council seat. It was a silly thing for them to do. There was no reason for us to do it, and they shouldn't have bothered. So far, what we're here, we've got all tons of requests in, access to information requests to Global Affairs, which, by the way, has 3 ministers in it now, doing the job of what used to be really 1. So we have a terribly bloated cabinet. We've got tons of access to information requests in with Global Affairs right now, trying to find out exactly what we paid. As far as we can gather from media reports, by the way, most of them international media reports, not very many Canadian ones, we've spent millions of dollars trying to woo a bunch of global bureaucrats in New York City at the United Nations to give Canada a seat on the Security Council. Apparently, we even paid for Celine Dion, really a wonderful songstress. I'm a big fan of hers. That's neither here nor there. But taxpayers' money was spent to get her to put on a concert for these bureaucrats. Meanwhile, Ireland was in the running, and they've got this little-known band. I don't know if you've heard of them, U2. Apparently, they paid them to give their pitch to the UN. This is super dumb. This is like an Olympic bid, but much more lame, and we paid for it. We even paid for dumb things like $24,000 apparently over the past 2 years worth of treats, like stuff like maple cookies and cutlery, and even this set of chocolates. Get this, it was called Peace by Chocolate. Get it? Instead of Death by Chocolate. Taxpayers spent about $24,000 on that crap for the past 2 years. So, yeah, unfortunately, the federal government is still wasting a ton of money, even though we're spiraling into debt.
What about the size of the current Canadian cabinet? Was it even this big during the Second World War?
That's a great question. Last I checked, there were more than 30 cabinet ministers in the federal cabinet and more than 30 parliamentary secretaries. And what that usually entails is, so say a cabinet minister, you've got him or her there doing their job. On average, they'll have between, say, 10 and even sometimes 20 direct political staffers. That's not touching the department. And then a parliamentary secretary is basically like an assistant cabinet minister. And he or she will probably have between 2, 3, or 4 staffers, depending on them. And again, last time I checked, it was more than 30 of cabinet ministers and more than 30 parliamentary secretaries. And what we've been saying now is that we need to strip this back down. We need to get back down more to a war footing. I'd be willing to bet that during the Second World War, we probably had around 20 cabinet ministers or so at the federal level. Right now, if you include the parliamentary secretaries, there's more than 60, including for ministries that nobody can define. Like there's a minister of middle-class prosperity who can't even define what middle class is. Like I said, we've got 3 ministers that are now making up what's called global affairs, whereas we should really only have 1. There's a ton of waste happening right now, even at the basic cabinet level in Ottawa. So if we use that as an example, we got to do some serious trimming if we're going to get financially our house back in order post-COVID.
The city of Vancouver is advertising for a social media PR person at $95,000 a year. Yet we have the Hastings Mill Museum, which may go under because it needs, I think, $5,000 to $9,000 to stay alive. So the city of Vancouver is ready to sacrifice heritage for its already bloated PR department, which has over 40 people. When Sam Sullivan was in the city, it was under 10.
It was. I think he had around 6 people working for him in PR, public relations. It's really a matter of priorities and judgment here. They can say all they want that, that amount of money was earmarked before, COVID and all this stuff. But this is the same city that is pleading with the feds to help them, pleading with Victoria to help them, saying that they're broke. Meanwhile, they're still planning on spending this. They're still planning on spending more than $90,000 on somebody who monitors social media. It's just a terrible waste of money. And back before COVID, I was there at the budget talks. This is back when they were threatening to increase taxes something like 9%. They were already threatening, saying, we're going to have to, of course, cut police or cut frontline services or, even cut garbage collection. But they weren't talking about cutting their public art displays budget. It's one of those strange things when it comes to priorities. Whenever you survey people, doesn't matter if it's in Vancouver or in New West or out here in the Fraser Valley or Victoria, if you actually ask the taxpayers, what do you want your local town hall government to manage? What are your top 3 priorities? They always answer, keep the streets clean, keep the streets repaired, and keep me safe. It's, garbage pickup, potholes, and police is generally what they mean by those answers. And funny enough, the moment that budget talks come up, that's one of the first things that these politicians threaten to cut. And it's the oldest trick in the book. They don't want to turn around and look at their own salaries or look at perhaps wasteful spending, things like, bloated communications staff or public art displays. They'll turn around and threaten frontline. And that's in order to get people to sit down and take it. And I encourage everybody, don't take it anymore.
We'll have more with Kris Sims right after this.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications, patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia and the Yukon, trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the OTCQB, symbol ABNAF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Kris Sims. Kris, a lot of condo strata councils are looking at huge increases in their insurance, 100% in some cases. Some strata councils being asked to pay the equivalent to their entire operating budget just for insurance. Does this mean ICBC should take over condo insurance in British Columbia?
That was one of the scarier things I'd read. That suggestion is mind-boggling because if you look at what they're doing for auto insurance, people are locked into the highest rates in Canada, and there's no hope. I've been hearing a little bit from some of these folks who are facing these terrible insurance jumps. There's got to be a way for them to be able to work this out between these companies and the government when it comes to regulation. There must be some explanation as to why it's going up so fast and so much. So the government needs to come up with a better answer between themselves and industry than, let's get ICBC to take it over. ICBC, we pay on average for auto vehicles $1,800 a year here in BC. That's the highest in all of Canada. And there's a monopoly. We've got nowhere to go. We're locked in. Even if you don't like ICBC and don't want to pay $1,800 a year, tough cookies. You've literally got nowhere else to go. So removing the ability for anybody to even try to shop around for their tenant and condo insurance doesn't sound like a wise idea. There must be a way for the government to try to work this out with industry and not just try to take it over. Nationalizing something and leaving people with no choice is almost never the answer. I can't think of one time it's worked.
Well, perhaps Medicare.
It depends on who you ask, right? If you're waiting in line for a hip replacement, or as I was just reading recently, you're waiting for years for pain management treatment at a hospital when you used to be able to get it somewhere else at a different clinic. It depends on who you ask. So lots of folks actually go to the States to get things like knees and hips done and to get their pain managed. So if we have all these Canadians who actually have the money to leave and take their money elsewhere and not keep it here in British Columbia, not so sure that's the best answer.
We'll have more with Kris Sims right after this.
Engineer Gold Mines is focused on the exploration and development of the historic high-grade Engineer Gold Mine situated 32 kilometers southwest of Atlin, British Columbia. Engineer Gold Mines is fully permitted for surface and underground exploration with the drill program now underway. Engineer Gold Mines Limited trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol EAU. For more information, please visit us at engineergoldmines.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're chatting with Kris Sims. Kris, the city of North Vancouver is going to allow public drinking in a handful of parks during pretty well daylight hours. Vancouver Park Board says it's looking at perhaps doing the same thing. Is this a good move?
Definitely a good move. So long as people are minding their own business and being respectful, there's no reason why adults can't do adult things like drink a beer or a glass of wine in a park. It's one of those things that will help private industry and small businesses. As we know, here in British Columbia, we do have privately owned beer and wine stores, and so those small businesses will be able to continue to sell their legal product. And folks, especially those who don't have access to things like a backyard or a balcony, and frankly, in Metro Vancouver, those things are prime. They're extremely expensive. The ability to go out to a park on a nice day while being respectful and minding your neighbors and your own business, and have a glass of wine, that will be a big difference in a lot of people's lives. If you're going out on a family picnic, with a good designated driver, if you want to enjoy yourself with your friends and family at a park or at a beach, something like that, with beer or wine, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to. Again, we have laws for a reason, and laws of disorderly conduct or being a hooligan, something like that, will still apply. So if they are violated, then the authorities can step in. But having it just as a blanket law that nobody can ever consume alcohol in a public place, other experiments in other cities around North America don't play that out. If you're being a respectful, responsible person and a good citizen, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to consume an adult beverage. And frankly, at this point, anything that makes it easier for a small business, whether they're a restaurant or a pub that is selling it at the door or delivering it to somebody's home as a form of takeout, or as a small business if you own a beer or wine store, something like that, anything that makes that wheel roll smoother and faster with less government restrictions, the better. Because there are many businesses that are on the brink right now. Unfortunately, we've seen restaurants, sometimes restaurants that have been there for 40 years in Metro Vancouver, shutting down. It's terrible. It's one of those things that really makes a community. It gives it character. It provides memories. Cheers wasn't just a comedy. It was a really meaningful show for a lot of people. And I know a lot of people have those special places in their communities, and it makes them livable. It makes them small towns within a big city. And to see them go through no fault of their own, because the government shut them down because we had this terrible health crisis, is really hard. And so anything that can be done, if it's waiving a wait time on a patio license, if it's making sure that servers can deliver beer and wine, anything that helps them stay afloat is better. And so we really, really applaud this move. This was the smart thing to do by government.
What about the law right now that allows you to have alcohol included in your takeout food order? Should that continue after this so-called crisis is over?
Absolutely. This is one of the little glimmers of hope, and I don't like to say silver lining. I can't, because this has just been such a devastating blow to so many people, both mentally, health-wise. Some have lost loved ones, and others have lost businesses they've built their whole lives. So if there's one glimmer, I'll put it that way, that we can take out of this, it's that red tape is being cut. And so something like allowing for beer and wine takeout or delivery can be a make or break. I've spoken directly with pub owners who have said that because, and they did it as a staged rollout in the region I was speaking to them from, because they were allowed to sell beer and wine with food orders for takeout, that meant that they hired back wait staff, waitresses and waiters, real people, actually went back to work, were no longer laid off, were no longer panicked about their jobs because of that one bit of red tape that was cut by government. And in the place where it was being rolled out, they were then hoping once they were able to deliver it on top of that they could hire back even more. So just that one simple move made a huge difference in real people's lives. And that was just one pub. Then you imagine that across BC. So yes, absolutely. Licensed businesses should be allowed to deliver beer and wine, and they should be allowed to continue to sell it at the door through the form of takeout to legally licensed adults. There's no reason why they shouldn't be able to do so. And again, this means the difference between people having a job or not. And if we think about everything that goes along with that statement, it's huge. It's not just money. This is people's own mental well-being and that of their families and the ability for them to make rent. It's very important. We really encourage the government to keep these restrictions gone.
Is there a big difference between municipalities when it comes to enabling business to get back to normal? I'm thinking of the examples of outdoor patios in Delta. You can put out an outdoor patio. They're only going to take a look if there's a complaint. Port Coquitlam, I believe, has actually sent out city crews to help you build a patio. Meanwhile, in Surrey, it costs you hundreds and hundreds of dollars just to apply to do it.
See, that's madness. That should not be costing you hundreds and hundreds of dollars to apply for a patio when you are a restaurant or a coffee shop or a pub, and let's use common sense, anything that would understandably have some form of an eatery attached to it. You should be able to have a patio. And again, as long as they allow for complaints, say, most businesses are great. They wouldn't do anything like this, but say for some reason somebody took up the entire sidewalk and folks couldn't get by, come on, that violates common sense. And as long as there's still a complaint process to rein in that sort of silliness, sure. But no, the default should be yes. It should always be yes. The alternative, the rare cases of no, should be the ones that you go to City Hall for. But the default should always be yes. And again, this is the difference between life or death for these small businesses and for these restaurant owners. And keep in mind what they bring to the community and the jobs that they bring. And again, we need to pull out all the stops we possibly can, both federally and provincially. And if we boil it down to the city level, city governments need to get the heck out of the way. And that's why we applaud things like they're happening in Delta and Port Coquitlam. They need to get back to very basics of, keeping the potholes filled, make sure that there's enough policing and keeping up cleaning up the garbage and encouraging businesses to beautify their areas. Anything they can do to get people back on track and back at work and back in business safely needs to be done. Because I don't want to be grim here, but if you look at the federal debt right now, I'm looking at it, it's going up $29 million an hour. It's $10,000 a second. So we're in a financial tailspin federally. We're not much better off here provincially. And so everything we can do, think locally, right? Think and act locally, and it will affect us globally. We need to do it.
Bill Morneau, I think, the finance minister, said there's no way for us to know how much the national debt or deficit's going up. And I wanted to suggest to him, why don't you just call the Taxpayers Federation and ask to see their debt clock?
Yep, debtclock.ca. It's one of the things that we've had going since the founding of the Taxpayers Federation. It's one of the reasons why we exist. We started in the 1990s during that deficit crisis, and we all remember Paul Martin when he was finance minister who eventually slayed the deficit. We gave him the Tax Fighter Award. We're not a partisan organization. If you're liberal or conservative, we don't care. Just make sure you don't waste our money and that you're accountable. And if you take things like debts and deficits seriously, we will encourage you and help you along the way. But if you turn around, he just needs to go to debtclock.ca and he can look at it exactly as I am. $10,000 a second. Right? $29 million an hour. Our share for every man, woman, and child, which is not really that accurate because seniors have mostly come off the tax doles. Little children don't pay taxes, as far as we understand it to be said, is $20,000 man, woman, and child. That's just federal. Provincially, it's around the same. It gets bad. So the finance minister, frankly, can just look it up. And he needs to be more accountable. They need to present a budget of some way, shape, or form. It can't just be a snapshot, as he's been saying. The Parliamentary Budget Officer, which is a nonpartisan office there in Ottawa, has been warning about this. Our federal director in Ottawa, the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, is warning about this. Winston Churchill presented budgets in the middle of the Blitz, in the middle of the Second World War. There's no reason why they can't do an accounting and let us know where we're at. They need to do at least a mini budget update, and we need it now.
Kris, where can people get more information about the Taxpayers Federation?
We would love it if they could go to our website, taxpayer.com. Again, you can sign up for our newsletter for free. There's no obligation. And what I love most about the website is that there's a toolbox there. You can click on different items, and you can figure out how to best write your member of parliament, write your MLA, how to put in a good phone call, how to actually get a petition that will be presented in Parliament or in the legislature in Victoria, and to do so in a firm and effective way. Change is possible. And if more people do speak up, regardless of who they vote for, this is about citizens' action, you will have results. So I encourage everybody to go to the website and we can help you out.
Thank you again, Kris.
Thank you.
My guest has been Kris Sims, BC Director of the Canadian Taxpayer Federation. Again, her website, taxpayer.com. If you have any questions for Kris or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. Find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet, our YouTube channel, Talk Digital Network. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated.